So there's one of my favorite songs is by Radiohead. It's called Paranoid Android, and it's like got super soft and chill stuff with a nice groove. And there's just bombastic, insane like rock in it too. It's almost like a little prog song where there's just so many different courses to the meal. And I want to do that. I want in this comic to tell boring, bland, mundane, domestic drama and tragedy, but I also would love to be able to tell wacky, believable, possible, but wacky stories too about political intrigue and international intrigue and spies. And what would a war be like if two versions of the U.S. Army realized that there's just through the veil another U.S. Army with the same, weapons and know-how and might.
Let's talk nerdy things like comic books and superheroes with some nerdy peeps, writers, cartoonists, and so much more. So stick around and have some fun with the lovely and adorable Eva Webb.
Hello, darlings, and welcome to Titular Characters. I am your adorable host, Eva Webb, and tonight I've managed to trap Mike Phillips in a room, and I'm going to force him to talk to me about comics. Mike is the editor-in-chief of the Sequart Organization. He's produced books like Grant Morrison, The Early Years, and The British Invasion, as well as documentaries like Grant Morrison, Talking with the Gods, She Makes Comics, and The Image Revolution. Recently, he's published his own comic book series, Necropolitan. How are you, Mike?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, it's no problem. So I hear that you've got a really exciting Kickstarter coming up. What's that about?
Yeah, we're going to try to launch right at the beginning of February to promote the new comic series that I am making with some buddies. It's called the Tessellation. And just going to try and raise some finishing funds for the first issue. And if there's any money left over from our net gain, it'll go to the penciler / inker to start issue 2.
That's awesome. What's it about?
It is like the elevator pitch phrase I've been saying to people is it's like Sliding Doors meets the game. There's this old movie, I believe it's from the 90s, old. Old. I'm embarrassed to say that, I saw it in the 90s and I am old now. It's a movie with Gwyneth Paltrow where she, I think she misses the train in one reality and in the next reality she catches the train. And the rest of the movie plays both scenarios out, like how her life would have been different if she had caught this train. So that's always stuck with me. And I'm going to pretty much do that kind of thing with the first issue where there's this guy, he's not a great dad or husband, and he begrudgingly takes his family to the store to run some errands. And on the way back, he just sees somebody, he's in the fast lane, probably not going as fast as the guy behind him wants him to go. So the guy behind him tries to pass on the right. And at that moment, the comic kind of splinters into 3 separate stories, Sliding Doors style. And I tell all 3 of those tales to their end point for the rest of the comic. And I'm kind of messing with the form a little bit. Like once this Sliding Doors moment happens, you'll be able to read just the top row. That'll be one reality. And you can just read the top row from, I think it's like page 8, all the way to the end of the issue. And then you could loop back and go to that Sliding Doors moment on page 8 and read the second row. You could do it that way, or you could just absorb it like a normal comic and just read it page by page. So there's different ways to read it, but I'm trying to like do a little string theory, like infinite reality story here. And there's a bottom row that's only barely connected to the top 3 rows, where a far removed version of this guy who maybe splintered off in high school he became a lot more wealthy, and he's got a lot of money to burn, and he gets hooked up with this kind of shadowy organization that has figured out a way to manipulate the multiverse and sell vacations to the other realities. So the bottom row guy is just going to start like kind of communicating with the other realities in the comics. So there's a lot of wacky kind of pseudoscience sci-fi going on too. But it's mostly like, 75% of it is pretty much like a mundane kind of like family drama.
That's really novel, though. Selling vacations in alternate realities.
Yeah, that's where when I say it's like Sliding Doors meets the game, that's the game element. If you ever seen that movie, it's David Fincher's, one of his early movies with Michael Douglas, where Sean Penn is Michael Douglas's brother, and he buys him this thing, and Michael Douglas doesn't believe what it is. He's like, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah, he's like, "No, seriously, it's like this game, but it's like role playing where there's intrigue and spies," and Michael Douglas doesn't buy it. He doesn't believe it. And then things start happening to him, and Michael Douglas can't tell if this is real or if it's part of this game that his brother bought him, and it's wild. So it's kind of connected to that, and the idea that you can buy these lavish trips, but they actually are to other realities. Can maybe go like spy on yourself if you want to voyeur yourself, or you can go rob a bank in another reality where there's no consequences because they whisk you back to your reality where you didn't rob a bank.
Nice. That's really exciting, and it almost has a. That's cool. So, like, when you were talking about the game, the other one that came to mind that's sort of like that is Total Recall. Where it's it's mind bendy, reality bendy. You don't know what's really going on.
Yeah, and to the very end, you don't know if he's going to wake up like one moment after the credits roll.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Oh,
but in this story, it all is happening. My idea is that with string theory, like, every possible thing is occurring through the veil, big and small. If you turned left at this intersection or right, if you chose chocolate versus vanilla, like all of those realities exist, just an infinite multitude of them. And some of them are really banal and mundane, and some of them are in like massively large. And that's a cool sandbox to mess around with.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really interesting comment, or it's a really interesting idea. And I think, questions like that really make you wonder about, like, what is the self?
Mm-hmm.
If you are defined by your own choices, what do you do in a multiverse where every choice has been made?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of the stuff that'll melt your brain if you think about it long enough.
It's fun.
It is fun.
It's
and
fun.
I'm trying to, and that's the thing. Like, I always kind of liken the stuff I write to music, because there's just different instruments in a song, and there's different, tools that can be used. So there's one of my favorite songs is by Radiohead. It's called Paranoid Android, and it's like got super soft and chill stuff with a nice groove, and there's just bombastic, insane like rock in it too. It's almost like a little prog song where there's just so many different courses to the meal, and I want to do that. I want in this comic to tell boring, bland, mundane, domestic drama and tragedy, but I also would love to be able to tell wacky, believable, possible, but wacky stories too about political intrigue and international intrigue and spies, and what would a war be like if two versions of the U.S. Army realized that there's just through the veil another U.S. Army with the same, weapons and know-how and might.
It's funny. There was, I think it was either book 3 or book 5 of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I think they were talking about time travel. And one of the characters was remarking how time travel has just made every time period so boring because every place is just like every other.
The situation's same. The situations change, but the people stay the same.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's another mind melter right there. But it's true. Like, people don't change very much I'm sure from era to era. They have the same. There's good people and bad people. There's selfish people and giving people. I don't think that's ever going to change.
So the part that I thought was really interesting about your bio was the part that talked about some of the books you wrote. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about some of those, because a couple on this list are actually extremely interesting.
As far as my involvement with the Sequart Organization?
Yes.
Okay, that's an organization I started. Well, I didn't start it. I would call myself a co-founder now, only because I've been there so long with my partner in crime. His name's Julian Darius. I found him online in like 2004. Jeez, I can't believe it's been that long. But yeah, I found him. His previous website was called the Continuity Pages. And aside from some articles about the stuff that he was reading at the time, most of the website was revolving around, he wanted to create a database for the chronological life of fictional characters. Like, you could go there and he would piece together the chronological life of, say, Barry Allen or Clark Kent. So rather than reading Action Comics 1 to 500, you would read this is crazy. He would put it in a way where he would figure out, okay, this issue, Man of Steel 87 happened before Action Comics 239. And then after that is, I don't know, Superman 91. Like, so he was putting it in the chronological order of Clark Kent's life. So it was a reading order from young Clark to old Clark. And I found this, and that was, I'm a continuity kind of junkie. And this just blew my mind. So I contacted him and I was like, I want to help. This is my kind of crazy. So we became friends over the years. And then one day, Batman Begins came out, and we had revamped the continuity pages to turn into what's called Sequart. And he started writing articles about Batman Begins and basically saying, okay, let's do this scene by scene. So in the first half hour of the movie, here are these scenes. And he would basically describe the scene, and then he would go into detail about what comics this scene derives from. And it was like just this blow by blow of the whole movie. And he goes to me, I'd love to publish this as a book. And at that time, there was a website called lulu.com. And I think it was before Amazon's platform. I forget what Amazon's self-publishing platform right now. Oh, CreateSpace. So it was lulu.com. He's like, I can create this, upload my PDF, and we could just tell people it's there and we could sell it. And I was like, oh, I'm into it. And that was just the beginning of our book line. I've never actually written any of our Sequart books. I'm just the kind of the editor, and I help produce the covers, and Julian does the design. He writes some of them, but we've done anthologies, and we've published, I want to say, about 40 books now. It runs the gamut, but mostly it's kind of like, I would say, Bronze Age and beyond, like to now. We've covered Grant Morrison, we cover Neil Gaiman, we cover Alan Moore, we cover all sorts of stuff. We branched out into popular franchises. We've done a trilogy on Star Wars. Like, one of the Star Wars books was an anthology about the extended universe. We did one about just Star Wars comics, and we did one about Star Wars in TV and film. We've done Blade Runner, we've done Hellboy, we've done all sorts of stuff. But no, I've not written any of it. That's my imposter syndrome. I don't really feel like I'm kind of an expert on anything, but I'll edit whatever you got, and that was kind of my way to kind of pitch in behind the scenes. And when we started doing Grant Morrison the early years, we had a guy approach us at a convention saying, I love your early years book. I'd love to do one on Grant Morrison's The Invisibles. And we're like, well, cool. You meet tons of people at conventions, and this is just how we kind of started to snowball. And he goes, oh, by the way, I just graduated from Wesleyan, and I'd love to maybe interview Grant on camera, because you have an interview at the end of Grant Morrison in the early years. I want to interview him, but let's do it on camera. Let's put it on YouTube. And we're like, sure, let's find a way to contact Grant. And then we did contact his wife, Kristen. And at that point, this guy, the author of the Invisibles book, his name's Patrick Meany. He goes, what if we just pitched to him that we could make a whole documentary about his career? And we're just going with the flow. And we're like, let's try it. So we posed 3 different like documentary lengths ideas to Kristen, and we could do a short one, we could do a medium-sized one, and just a full-on feature-length 90-minute one. And Kristen runs it by Grant, and Grant he's like, let's do it, let's do the whole thing. So we ended up making a whole feature-length documentary about Grant. We premiered it in a Navy centrifuge. You know how like they spin like the Navy pilots around in those crazy centrifuges to get them used to like G-forces, right? We premiered it in a centrifuge. It was the most surreal thing. And it kept building, and we've made more documentaries since. We made a documentary about Friedrich Wertham and, his like kind of witch hunt on comics. But it's a pretty balanced view. It shows like that he's not the complete villain. He definitely doesn't, like all villains in comics, he didn't view himself as the villain. So it's a pretty balanced look. We did a documentary about Neil Gaiman. Our big one was She Makes Comics. We did a Kickstarter for that one, and boy, that really took off. So it's been, I guess, about 17 years now with Julian and Sequart. So
wow.
We've made a lot of products, and it seems like another life. We've slowed down in our old age now, and now we're trying to make our own comics.
You couldn't be that much older than me, though. I don't think.
I'm 43.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm older than you, and I don't feel like I'm old.
Oh,
so.
Great.
Oh, no. Actually, no, that's not true. I'm not 44. I'm miscalculating. I'm 43. You see, that's part of the problem with being old is that...
it doesn't matter. The number doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, you just kind of forget it. So what I've started doing, because it's a number I can keep up with a little more easily, I've just been telling people I'm 27 and they believe me. I don't know why, but they do. It's wonderful.
So it must mean you look great.
Thank you.
Oh, boy. And I'm balding and graying. I got a whole Bonnie Raitt thing going up in the front. It's like this big swirl of gray. It's awesome.
Well, when guys get older, though, they always get more attractive as they get older. And that picture you sent, like, everybody's going to see it in the YouTube version, and if they go to the website, but it is just adorable.
Oh, thank you. Picture. I feel bad cropping my kids out of that one, actually. But yeah, I've been trying to drop the silver fox hashtag around my wife in the kitchen recently, and she's not buying it. So I'm gonna just stick to your little cute description there of me. Adorable. I will take adorable.
Adorable works. Adorable works.
Thank you.
So you also worked on Necropolitan, which is actually a series I've heard of. So
wow.
So when your name came up, and I remembered Necropolitan, and I was like, holy shit, I have to talk to this guy. This is cool.
Awesome. I actually have like a Google alert for Necropolitan, just pie in the sky hoping that somebody online would talk about it. And it's always about like the Dungeons and Dragons race of characters or some like death metal band in Sweden. So the fact that you've heard of the comic Necropolitan is like a win. You just made my day.
Well, indie comics are my thing. I love indie comics, and the smaller the distribution, the happier I am, because I like being one of those people that
you're going to love my
that has read all kinds of stuff that's just sort of off the wall and underground. And, I'll find stuff at, like when we start going to cons again after COVID, I'm going to find comics to read in the hallway before the artist's room, where you find like all these revolutionary people who are going to be huge in 20 years. I'm going to find their comics, and I'm going to read them, and I'm going to talk about them. This is more notable than that, I think. The people that are talking about Necropolitan have given it pretty good reviews, and I was wondering if you could tell us what it's about.
Okay. It's about, I guess the elevator pitch of this one is like it's Gangs of New York meets Highlander in hell. I kind of try to shy away from the Game of Thrones thing just because everybody uses it. So you got to go with Gangs of New York. It's basically just a turf war of different factions who I kind of, nicked the idea of the absentee Lucifer, from Neil Gaiman. I like the idea that, the inmates are in charge of the asylum kind of deal. So what better venue than just to have every historical asshole, just down there, like fighting each other. I mean, you've got such a palette there. And it's basically a bunch of bad people have like joined different groups. You've got your wizards up in the mountains with like Aleister Crowley and John Parsons Whiteside. They've recruited Henry Ford for a weird reason. That's going to be in the second.
Well, that makes sense, actually, though.
Okay. And they're about to recruit. Oh God, I'm having a brain fart right now. Oh my gosh, Thomas Edison. He's kind of going to be the star of the second arc. I'm writing it now. He has no idea why he's even in hell. But between Henry Ford and his old buddy Thomas Edison teaming up with John Parsons Whiteside and Aleister Crowley, that's going to be like the techno wizards clan. The Romans have their own compound. They're really winning hell right now. They've been winning hell for a while with Caligula and Nero, and they're collecting serial killers. And that's where the first issue starts, where they've come to find the Craigslist killer. They've sent their two biggest goons, who are Elizabeth Bathory and Jack the Ripper. They're collecting this Craigslist killer because he's the hot new buzz in hell. Like, we all want this guy. He's like kind of Dexter meets To Catch a Predator kind of deal. So he gets gobbled up by the Romans and brought back to the compound. So it's kind of like Training Day at that point. So the first 3 issues are this made up character. We kind of took the Craigslist killer and we made our own details. And so it'll be his indoctrination into hell. And it kind of turns into everything goes sideways during Training Day, and it turns into that weird scene from Pulp Fiction, like the Zed scene. It just gets very odd and weird, and there's a chase, and like Napoleon shows up. He works for Robespierre. Robespierre's kind of like the clan who lives downtown in Pandemonium, which is like the capital city. And it's just so much fun. I'm sure I'm rambling now, but I could talk about this forever. It's just it's another fun sandbox to play in. I mean, when every character is like a famous asshole, like you can't go wrong, You
can't. And I love the conceit of the story, how it all just sort of takes place in hell, where everybody's there pretty much. And you can pick, any character from history essentially. And just throw them into these bonkers situations.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's neat.
Yeah, it's a kind of like Garth Hennessy, I would say. It's brutal, but there's kind of a wink at the brutality. It's got to be brutal because it's hell. But we don't go way over the top. I would say there are moments that kind of get a little close to NC-17, but mostly we're keeping it kind of like rated R, kind of HBO rated R kind of deal, just because I'm not all about the gross out. And in fact, when I was making it, I just lost my train of thought. I couldn't even believe that I was even making it. Like, the idea wouldn't leave me alone. We were making the Warren Ellis documentary. I don't want to go too much into our amount of products that Sequart has made about Warren Ellis, because he's apparently a creep. But when we were making that documentary about him, he said something that kind of I could not shake, which was one of the interviewers was asking him about the authority. And the interviewer said, "Is there any virtue to the authority at all?" And he goes, "Well, it's all relative." Warren Ellis says, like, it's all relative. Like, Adolf Hitler is the good guy if he's punching Satan in the face. And I could not shake that little kernel of an idea, and it's like festered and festered. I'm a 7th grade teacher. Like, there's no way I need the parents of my students knowing that I make Necropolitan. Like, they'd be like, "Oh, I need to get my kid out of that class, like, stat." So there was no real upside for me to even make this. But I had to tell it. So I brought Julian in because I don't really have any formal writing training, but he's definitely a pro at writing. And I was like, I can't shake this idea. I got to get it out of my head. He's like, "Yeah, I like it. Let's do it." So we made it, and now I'm writing the second arc, and it's super fun. So I just can't shake it. It's just a fun sandbox to play in. So I'm going to keep making it.
So, what inspires you?
I would say I don't know how many people will relate to this, but I think fear. If you read Tessellation #1, you're going to see like it almost is like a voodoo doll of the things I'm afraid of, as far as being like a bad husband and a bad dad. So a lot of times when I was making this story, it was just a constant like, because when you think about it, when you become a parent, like there's just all these doomsday scenarios that pass through my mind. Like, what if I accidentally did X, Y, Z and this thing happened to my kid or my wife or whatever? Like, what if I made this one bonehead move when I was on the highway? Like, I'm in the driver's seat. I've got my whole family in the minivan. And if I just go this certain speed, or I forget to look in this rearview mirror when I make my move to the next lane, there's this constant like anxiety that comes with playing for big stakes, like trying to keep a family together, trying to be a good dad. And I think it's weird to say, but fear was definitely, it's just, I might as well try to figure out a way to channel it. So that was a weird inspiration, but it's a real one. David Lynch is definitely a big inspiration. Music's a big inspiration because I'm not formally trained to write. But I always thought I was a good idea guy. So where do I pull from as far as ideas go? I have no idea. But I could always brainstorm and spitball with the best of them. But as far as writing goes, I had to kind of lean on David Lynch, because when you watch like Twin Peaks: The Return, you can just tell this is a guy who doesn't give a shit. Someone gave him a bunch of money, and he's going to make whatever he meditates up that morning. And that was like a total inspiration when I was writing the Tessellation #1. Like, if it makes sense to you, just follow that path. If this wacky multiple realities, you're going to make it rows, and a person can just read row 3 and that's all they ever read. And it's just, you're going to try to break comics or whatever, just put the naysayers at the back of your mind and just go for it. And obviously there's no budget when it comes to writing a script. It's just you and a keyboard. So I thought, I'm just going to make this crazy thing and see what happens. So David Lynch was definitely somebody who just helped me say, fuck it, I'm just going to do it.
Nice. How do the artists fit into your workflow? Are they active collaborators, or are they just sort of producing the story you write?
I would say for the first time ever, and this isn't a slight to the other artists I've worked with, but when I found Hernan, who is the penciler / inker in Argentina, he might call himself a draftsman. I found a couple people before him, and it definitely just seemed more like a work for hire thing. They read it, they go, oh, I get it. I get this. I can draw this. Let's do it. And it just kind of like, there was like 3 stops and starts. I started writing this thing in 2017. Probably wasn't done until 2018, but between 2018 and now, there's been 4 different people who were going to draw this thing. But once I kind of had to break up or whatever, like go my separate ways from the previous person before Hernan Gonzalez, I just went to Facebook. There's this one page called like artists meeting writers, or I don't know what it was, but connecting artists and writers was this page, this group. And I just posted what I want to do. It's a paying gig, and it's a weird story. Just want to tell you up front, it's really a long script. The script is 30,000 words for 30 pages. I thought, who was ever going to really end up doing this thing? But a bunch of people said, yeah, I'll do it. And you could just tell it's the same old mercenary thing. They're looking for gigs. I get it. But I finally found someone who they posted some of their art, and I would just look through these pages and go, oh, this guy looks good. Let's see what his price is. And he told me his price, and I'm like, I can work with this. And I sent him the script with all the caveats about how the script is nuts and it's different and weird, and you can just kind of go with me on this. And he read it, and he got back to me. He says, I am on board. I'm in. And at first, you're wondering, is he just saying this because he wants the gig? But every step of the way, he's made me completely confident that he feels that this is his baby too. And I've never had that happen before. it's actually pretty surreal to think that I just chose this guy on a chance on Facebook group. And now I feel like I've only known him for 6 months, and I feel like this dude is one of my best friends ever. Like it's his baby too. He loves it. He wants it to work. I feel like he is my co-creator on this, and it's just been an amazing experience. He's the nicest guy. Every time he sends me a new page, he's like, "Hey, Michael, my good friend. Hey, dear Michael, how are you? My good buddy, here's a new page." And he's kind of spoiled me too. Like Julian has always taught me, like, when the page comes in, you pick your battles. If there's certain things you need to be changed for whatever story reason, you got to tell the artist to change them. But don't get so like anal that you're like, oh, well, he's supposed to have, his earring or his hair needs to be this length, and your continuity of hair length from panel to panel. Like, you can't be super anal. These artists will just get like mad at you and sick of you. Well, Hernan is like, he pampers me so much. He has spoiled me, where he's just like, are you sure? Are you sure this is how you see it in your head? And I'm like, how did I find this guy? Like, I could totally abuse this guy and go, well, can I get the cargo shorts like 1 inch past the kneecap? And he'd be like, absolutely, you got it. And I'll be like,
wow.
Through it, can we try these as capris? Sure, let's do it. And he'll always come back and say, maybe it was just a translation error on my part. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is the nicest guy ever. I'm in love with this guy. I hope this guy has a long and illustrious career in comics. His name is Hernan Gonzalez, and he is a star in the making.
That's amazing. It's really something, when you're collaborating with an artist who just totally vibes with you and they're on the same page. It's really nice.
It's a dream come true. And again, he has spoiled me, because the next person I work with will not let me get away with any of this shit. So he is so nice and accommodating, and we're the same age. So I think another aspect he kind of like adapted to was just being a dad who might have some of the same fears. I think he's our age. So he just kind of, he's like, yeah, I get this. I'm in.
So Mike, what are you reading right now?
Currently, physically, the physical copy I'm reading is the third trade paperback of Paul Chadwick's Concrete. It's called Fragile Creature. I was casting the net. The past couple of weeks, I've been trying to gear up for this Kickstarter and trying to get some promotion going. And somebody interviewed me a couple of weeks ago and asked me, like, what's my favorite comic of all time? And for some reason, my brain always defaults to Concrete, because that was one of the first like grown-up comics I read. It's when you're doing like the gateway drug of superhero comics, and then eventually you start doing something crazier like mushrooms. Like Vertigo is your mushrooms or your LSD, from superheroes being your beer, your Bud Light beer. This was one of the first grown-up, quote unquote, comics I read, and in my like very feeble mind, I started in my own mind calling it the Seinfeld of comics, because it just felt like Seinfeld was big at the time I was reading this stuff, and it just felt like it's a story about nothing, which is obviously not true, because there's a lot of deep concepts in Seinfeld, and this felt like that to me. It was like about a guy. He's trapped in a suit of stone, of course, but he's still a guy going through stuff that people go through. And so when I was talking to this interviewer 2 weeks ago, and he goes, what's your favorite comic? And I, again, defaulted to Concrete. I was like, I got to grab one of those off the shelf. So I went straight to book 3, which is called Fragile Creature. And I got to say, Paul Chadwick, like this book is just, I'm holding it right now. It's so good. It's the one where he gets asked by like a Hollywood movie studio to kind of like work on the Hollywood lot to help with special effects, and it's just gorgeous. And like you can tell Paul Chadwick is like throwing the kitchen sink at it on this one, because there's like at one point there's a painting that he does, and there's like a surreal another page has like a surreal like Salvador Dali underwater scene. And I mean, there are like script pages to this fictional movie that he's working on. and there's like text pages, like Watchmen style, or someone's writing a letter to someone. I mean, it's got everything. It's gorgeous. And this is the beauty of black and white. Like when Hernan turns a page into me, I almost get worried what the colorist is going to do that will take away from Hernan. Like this is black and white and it's gorgeous. And there's a million words on a page and each word balloon is just chock full of text. And I don't mind that. It's such a buffet. It's so good. So that's when I've gone back to reading physically, and digitally I'm reading. You ever heard of Hoopla? It's like a library app.
I have.
It's got so much good stuff. So recently I was reading The Twilight Children by Gilbert Hernandez and Darwin Cook and Dave Stewart from Vertigo. It's really great. I haven't gotten all the way through it. I'm in the 3rd issue out of 4, and it's very dreamy. At least that's what I'm guessing. Like when you get to a point where everything starts getting super surreal, you're like, all right, what's the metaphor here? Or am I in a dream? So I haven't solved the mystery yet, but it's a great story. I mean, Gilbert Hernandez is awesome, and Darwin Cook is awesome. Oh yeah. So that's kind of.
Oh yeah, you can't go wrong with Darwin Cook.
No, it's pretty to look at, and I mean, when you read the dialogue, it's cool. It's like Gilbert. A lot of times, the way he writes, it's like thought bubbles, but they're saying out loud their thought bubbles, and that's kind of a fun thing. They're saying exactly what they're thinking, which makes me also feel like it's a dream. I don't know. I haven't finished it. I can't wait to get to the end, but so far so good.
Nice. I remember I discovered Concrete at a comic book convention. It was the weirdest thing because, the year before, which I think was like 1980, 89, I started going to conventions. And then in 1990, Concrete was everywhere. I mean, it was at every table. It was at every merchant. You could not get away from the thing. And I got really, really curious about it. And I initially thought to myself, oh, it's just sort of a Ben Grimm knockoff, whatever. And then I opened it up and I'm looking through the pages, and it's printed in black and white. And it is a very serious comic. It is is deep. It is meaningful. It's paced well. God, I wish they'd make a movie out of it, or like a Netflix show.
Oh, man. Yeah, cool. Actually, it would be great to have how many trades are there? I think it's like 7 or 8. It'd be great to have each one be a season. I mean, there's anthology, like shorter stories in the back of each one, kind of like, bonus cuts, bonus tracks, like on a CD. But there's definitely a big story in each one. I would love that. And with the, digital animation with movies and shows these days, you could totally pull it off and make it believable. I don't know why Paul's not really making comics anymore. I guess just there's not enough money in it for him. I don't know. I know he was doing work on the Matrix video game, but that was forever ago at this point. So every once in a while I'll just tweet about him on Twitter and he'll like it. He'll give me a heart. But I miss him. I miss him in the comics world. I hope I'm not saying something dumb like he's making comics right now and I'm not noticing, but he is I'd say he's a comics genius.
Yeah, he is. It is a question, or a term I would use to describe it would be it's a very lush book. Mm-hmm. Lush is a good word,
Yeah. Oh, it's a feast. There's a lot to absorb. Yeah, and it's really deep stuff. I mean, imagine going from, X-Men to that. At the right time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're like, holy shit, this is what comics can do? I mean, yeah, it's there's no way that somebody who had a subscription in 90 or 91 to all the Marvel, $20.99 and I don't know, X-Men and Spider-Man, you have a subscription to all those, and then you thrust a black and white comic in my face. There's no way I should have ever said, okay, let's give it a try. And obviously, that's the testament to how good it is.
Well, it's really jarring, initially. The first time, when you go from that lavish multicolor experience into this, it's incredible.
It's beautiful.
So, Mike, we are almost at that time. So,
Okay.
I thought I would ask you the exciting and fun question that we get to ask to everybody, and see where it goes from here. You ready?
Okay. I'm a genius at ad-libbing, so this won't be a train wreck. Let's go for it.
All right. So, you wake up one day and you have superpowers. You are a superhero. So you go out and you do your superhero thing, whatever that superhero thing is. But what are your powers? What does your costume look like? Do you consider yourself a hero, an anti-hero, and what do you do to make the world a better place?
I actually do think every once in a while about. I guess it would be great to be completely like invincible, like, as far as like nothing can hurt me. I think that would be the power I would need, and not only just to protect my family in general in a tight spot, but I just see a lot of, I don't know, I just see a lot of bad stuff going on, especially in this country. But because I mean I live here, but all over the world, I do see myself as a pretty good guy. I mean, I definitely I self-identify as a pretty selfish person, but I've got my reasons for that, and I think I was kind of nurtured into that way from my childhood. But I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 8.8 as far as a good guy goes. And I think if I were to use my powers of invincibility, I would get into situations where I would have to take out somebody who was acting poorly. I don't want to get too political here, but I definitely have my opinions about politics right now, as I'm sure everyone does. And I have a feeling like there'd just be some politicians who would need to be get slapped around a little bit.
I feel you there. By the way, it's totally okay to get political on this show. We have sort of a left wing anarchist bent, so you're totally welcome.
I just see so much like hypocrisy in the Senate, and it's just kind of been just gross for so long. And I just feel like special interests have been really just kind of getting quid pro quo from a certain turtle looking dude in the Senate. And it's been so gross for so long. And I just feel like, not to say that the other side is perfect. Obviously, you never want to assume your side is perfect. Maybe they're an 8.8 too. I just feel like there's just been so much taking and not enough empathy and giving. And I just side with the underdog. And I was really into the protests last year. And I don't know. I look at this. I don't know if I should say this or not, but sometimes when I see white people, I get a little nervous. I'm wondering, how racist is that guy? You know what I mean? Like, I just want to know. It just bothers me. And I feel like if I had invincibility, I could really mix it up and make the world a better place. Because I just feel like there's been one side taking for so long and afraid to give up power because they've never been without it, that they're going to do whatever they can to hold on to it. And that's kind of sickening to me. And I'm raising my boys to love everyone and be respectful, whatever the person looks like or who they love. And I just see this other side that is just so backwards to me. And it just feels like I'm staring at actual comic book villains sometimes. So I teach history, which is great. And I don't really give my opinion to my 7th graders, but I do preach empathy a lot. There is this program in our school where it's an acronym, but one of the letters is E, and it's about empathy. And I just, every chance I get when I'm teaching early American history about how the Native Americans were treated, I'm always like, how did those tribes feel? Tell me about the Trail of Tears. Put yourself in the Trail of Tears. Put yourself in the Dominican Republic when Christopher Columbus shows up. And it's just my job. If there's anything I can do without getting fired, to say to these students, like, please look outside of yourself and wear someone else's shoes. The only way we're ever going to win this thing is with love and empathy. And, I haven't been fired yet. So luckily, I guess I haven't said anything that's too opinionated. But if I just keep falling back on empathy, I can't get fired for that, you would hope.
That's true. That's true, because so much of modern politics is just this idea, and it starts in this place of, well, I got mine, so you don't have a problem.
Yep.
You know?
God. Right when Trump won, I was working right next door to a teacher. At that time, I was teaching science and social studies, and so was she. And her response, I just said, but he's such a garbage snake oil salesman, kind of like trash human. And she goes, I don't care. My investment, my bank accounts, my interests are going up. Like my stocks are going up. I'm like, oh, you're gross. You're gross. Like that's, but my accounts are going in the right direction. Is your answer to, I think this guy is the grossest person to be in the Oval Office? Yeah, but my bank accounts are looking sweet right now. I'm like, oh my God. This woman's a teacher. Like, what do you say when the door is shut and you got 30 kids looking at you?
Yeah. That's crazy.
I want to be invincible. So if I ever do mix it up with a crazy person, they can't hurt me back.
That works out. I wanted to thank you for coming on my humble little podcast. This has been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you and your work online?
Okay, it's been a pleasure for me too. I live with people who are aware of comics, but it doesn't go much farther than that. So anytime I get the chance to talk about it is fantastic, especially when we're all locked in together right now. But you can find me on Twitter at Mike Makes Comics. You can find all of the nonfiction stuff that Julian and I have spearheaded at Sequart. It's sequart.org. That's SEQUART.org. Got about 40 books, 7 or 8 documentaries. We have a YouTube channel called Sequart TV. I'm going to be published through Julian's fiction label called MartianLit.com, MartianLit.com. They've started by publishing some fictional prose books, but his move these days has been just publishing comics. And I just want to give a shout out to him. He's been my mentor. He's published 30 comics on his own in this expansive universe called the Martian Comics universe, where he's doing this whole alternate history thing where Mars has been kind of like vacationing in our bodies for thousands of years, and it's pretty amazing. Anyway, I'm getting off in a tangent, so you can reach me in those spots.
So I have an audience that absolutely insists on being interacted with. They're beautiful, amazing people. And I was wondering if you had a question that you could ask the audience that you could have them interact with on Twitter.
Sure. I've got, my head is definitely wrapped up in the Tessellation idea of just multiple realities. Infinite realities where any choice you've ever made or anyone's ever made is happening. So I guess I have got like a if A plus B equals C, like if this, if that, I've got like a string of questions. So I don't know if I can pose the first one and we can keep going or just keep it to one, but you can just stop me. But the main question is, if the multiverse is real, how would you react to finding out there's an infinite number of alternate reality versions of you? Like if there's just all these other people who are also facsimiles of you, carbon copies of you, who've had different, nurture moments. You have the same nature, but you have slightly different nurture moments. Like, how would you react to that? Do you want to meet them? Do you want to not know anything about them? And if you want to keep going down that path, like, would this alter your morality? For instance, is if you start caring about these other versions of yourself, is that empathy? Or is that selfishness? Like, is this a weird kind of selfishness where you start caring about other versions of you? Or on the other side of that coin is thinking about other selves maybe being lesser than you because you are you, and there's no one else who is you. So you might start thinking of those other versions of you, because they're not you, as lesser versions of you. Is that a weird, creepy kind of sociopathy? So this is the kind of stuff that is always in my mind when I'm writing the scenes of the Tessellation.
And now, friendos, it is time for the credits. Titular Characters is a podcast about the things we love. It's produced and hosted by the adorable Eva Webb. That's me. Graphic design by Lex Eva. Show logo by John Rochelle. Opening theme by Antonia Marquis. Dramatic music and closing theme by Speed Force Music. Editing by Jocelyn McPherson. Mixing and sound by Brogan Malloy. Want to get in on the Twitter fun? Just follow me at Eva is Adorable and wait for the next exciting question to drop. Do you feel like supporting the show? Are you the kind of person that expresses your love by giving money to adorable podcasters you meet on the internet? Of course you are. And now you can help us out with a quick donation at buymeacoffee.com/Eva is Adorable. Because I am. Every little bit helps. And that's all we got, babies. Join us next time for another exciting adventure in cyberspace. Love ya!